So Jesus used God used the same nappy overalls again. Am I correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he was stripped naked and murdered by his own creation.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Fully correct?
Yes.
Look at me now and tell me.
Yes.
Okay. And then he got taken off the cross.
Yes.
Then he was dead.
Yeah.
God died.
Yeah.
Then God came back to life.
Yeah.
Then God disappeared.
Yeah.
And that's all true.
Yes.
SubhanAllah.
Fair. We ask a disrespectful question. I'll ask a disrespectful question.
Not disrespectful. Like everyone.
That's not a disrespectful
what
question.
I said is true.
What I've said is true as well. What I said was true as well. Muhammad did get pounded by jinns. At the night of the jinns, Muhammad got pounded by Satan as he was reciting the Quran. Yes, he was. Search it up.
Do you have any proof of that?
Yeah, the night of the jinns. My phone's dead. You can look it up. It's a hadith.
Why's your phone dead?
Furthermore, there is the fact that Muhammad himself was afflicted by magic, to the point that he could not distinguish reality from illusion. Sahih al-Bukhari 5765 states that Muhammad experienced a condition where he thought he had done things he had not actually done. This is a classic sign of someone under the influence of magic or mental manipulation. If a prophet, who is claimed to be the best of humanity, can be affected by sorcery, how can his revelations be considered pure and uncontaminated? In contrast, Jesus Christ, both in the Bible and even in Islam, is recognized as a sinless and pure figure. Surah Maryam 19:19. When Jesus encountered Satan, he was never deceived. Instead, during his temptation in the wilderness, Matthew 4:1-11, Jesus demonstrated his authority by directly rejecting Satan's temptations.
في البدء كان الكلمة والكلمة كان عند الله وكان الكلمة الله.
Who do you respect all the time? If you criticize him for a position,
No.
you also have to.
Because he's a social Trinitarian.
You have to stand on.
Who do you respect then?
I respect the early church, the church doctrines, and Jesus Christ.
Criticize the doctrine of the Trinity. So, by the same token, he's doing a defense.
Do you respect Muhammad?
Isn't that right?
Yeah. Okay, so I've got a question. then. So why in the religion of Muhammad is incest permitted, marriage permitted, and abortion is permitted? It's a simple question.
Let's stick to theology, right? Okay. That's what matters.
No, you said who I respect. You said you respect Muhammad. I'm asking you a question.
I'm just asking because there's clearly no Christian scholars anymore that you respect.
I respect the early church and Jesus Christ.
In Christianity, God's revelation progresses toward a higher standard of moral purity. The law in Leviticus explicitly prohibits incest, and in the New Testament, marriage is depicted as a reflection of the relationship between Christ and the Church, a sacred and loving union. Now let's talk about marriage in Islam. In Islam, Muhammad married Aisha when she was still a child, and authentic hadith state that she was 6 years old at the time of their marriage and 9 years old when the marriage was consummated. Does this reflect a high moral standard? Muslims will argue that it was acceptable in its historical context and that child marriage was common at the time. But Muslims also believe that Muhammad is the ultimate moral example for all time, don't they? If so, why does his moral example reflect practices that do not align with the universal moral standard that has developed alongside God's revelation? Even in modern society, such practices are considered unethical. Now let's compare this with Jesus Christ. He upheld the highest moral standard, teaching love, faithfulness in marriage, and respect for the dignity of every individual, including women and children. He never married a child, never allowed polygamy, and never promoted incest. How can Muslims regard Muhammad as the highest moral model when his actions contradict ethical principles that even the human conscience naturally rejects?
I believe Christianity is justice.
Look up to.
Okay, so I could. Okay, so do you understand why these aren't modern day arguments? There have been 400 years of my church critiquing Islam, and there's been hundreds of years of Islam critiquing Christianity. And so far, if you read, for example, Ibn Taymiyyah's works criticizing Christianity, he strawmans the Eastern Orthodox position. So I've got a question. You said you respect Muhammad. So why does Muhammad permit incest, child marriage, and abortion?
What you're saying is, I don't like answering those questions.
Why? Do you believe in abortion, child marriage, and incest?
Let's talk about Christianity.
No, we're going to talk about Islam. Because you asked me who I respect. I said the early church. Pardon?
The absurdity of believing.
Yeah, three persons. Yeah, so it's a value proposition in a different respect. So three persons in one divine substance.
Well, I don't even know why you're yapping at. No, I.
Okay, so if you old enough to engage in a marriage contract according to Islam.
Gotcha. What's the 18 plus?
Pardon?
18 plus?
Oh wait, is it an age or is it maturity?
Oh, are you asking for my personal view? We follow the law.
Not personal view, Sharia.
We follow the law. Whatever.
Okay, so let's just say you institute a caliphate under your Sharia law according to your Aqidah. Would the age of consent and marriage be according to maturity or according to age?
I have a question.
I am asking you a question, answer it.
Say it again.
So, according to your Sharia, is marriage according to maturity or age?
I'm saying he's just.
After they hit puberty.
He's just.
So it's maturity.
After they hit puberty.
So let's just say I have gone through puberty, therefore I'm mature enough to engage with a conversation. So there is no need to ask for my age because I'm old enough for Aisha.
I have a question, yeah?
Yeah?
Say you find a girl attractive on the street, yeah?
Pardon?
Say you find a girl attractive on the street.
Yeah.
You're walking down the street.
Yeah.
You find a girl attractive. Are you asexual? No, he's not.
Yeah.
He likes girls. Alright, say you find her attractive, yeah?
Yeah.
But she's 11.
Yeah.
But you still found her attractive, true?
I would go to confession and seek help from...
Yeah, but naturally in your body you still found her attractive.
Wait, so are you now saying that your religion promotes bodily desire? So he's just admitted that Islam promotes bodily desire, that I should follow that lust of an 11-year-old girl. Now I've got a question for you. If you were attracted to an 11-year-old girl, would you follow through with that lust?
Well, let me finish my
Okay,
point.
so after you finish your point, you're going to answer my question.
So,
An 11-year-old girl may have reached puberty, but does that mean she is ready to take on the responsibilities of marriage, family, and an adult relationship? Science and psychology show that the human brain is not fully developed at that age. Shouldn't a moral and just law consider not only biological maturity but also mental and emotional well-being? This is deeply concerning because a true moral system should teach self-control, not merely following biological instincts. If the standard for marriage is simply puberty, then what prevents someone from marrying a child as soon as they develop physically, even if they are still mentally and emotionally immature? In contrast, Jesus Christ set the highest moral standard, teaching love, purity, and respect for human dignity. He never married a child, never encouraged polygamy, and never justified lust as a reason for marriage. If Islam claims to be the final revelation, why does its moral standard allow something that even modern human conscience rejects? So, I ask again, if Muhammad is supposed to be the model for all time, why does his example permit a practice that the world today considers immoral? Shouldn't a true divine law transcend culture and biological urges, reflecting justice, love, and protection for the vulnerable?
Okay.
Are you Christian?
Yes.
Are you Christian?
Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
I've got a question because I keep on asking this.
No, I haven't asked you.
Okay, so what's the question?
Okay, I'll say it respectfully to the girl here as well.
Yes.
So you've got to answer it properly, yeah?
Yeah,
You
then
can't be shy.
okay.
So tell me if I'm correct what I'm saying.
Yes.
So you believe that Jesus is the creator of everything?
Yes.
So then Jesus came down to earth
Yes.
as God
Yes.
and man.
Yeah.
Came out of a woman's private parts with afterbirth on his face.
Let's get to the question. Yeah.
No, that's, I'm not asking you.
Yeah.
Am I correct so far?
Yeah. That all
correct?
happens. Yeah, that all
Okay.
happens. Yeah.
And then he was breastfed
Yes.
by his creation.
Yes.
And hold on. And breastfed, he soiled his nappy.
Yeah.
They
Okay.
didn't have disposable, they had to use the same nappy.
Okay.
So Jesus used God used the same nappy over and over again. Am I correct, yeah?
Yeah.
And then he was stripped naked and murdered by his own creation.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Fully correct?
Yes.
Look me now and tell me.
Yes.
Okay. And then he got taken off the cross.
Yes.
Then he was dead.
Yeah.
God died.
Yeah.
Then God came back to life.
Yeah.
Then God disappeared.
Yeah.
And that's all true.
Yes.
Subhanallah.
Okay, so I've got a question. What happened? Okay, I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to answer your question. Then I want you to answer my question. What happened at the night of the jinns? What happened at the night of the jinns?
I don't know.
Where Muhammad got pounded by jinns?
I don't know.
He got pounded by Satan.
I've not heard that.
Search up the night of the
Okay,
jinns.
if you say so, okay, but I've not heard it.
Okay, so why did that happen?
I don't know.
Because I can answer your question respectfully, but if you ask an inflammatory question,
don't
I will
know,
as well.
but, okay.
So the person of Christ acts in relation to his humanity. Yeah. He's an eternal person with two respected natures and
But
different
was God
relations.
breastfed?
Yes,
Which breast was it, left or right?
I am unaware.
Which breast was it, left or right?
What hole was Muhammad pounded by Satan?
I don't know about that. No, but
We ask a disrespectful question, I'll ask a disrespectful question.
That's disrespectful. Like everyone, we always.
That's not a disrespectful
what I've
question.
said is true.
Your dad was breastfed.
What I've said is true as
Your
well.
dad was breastfed.
What I said was true as well. Muhammad did get pounded by jinns.
Is God was breastfed?
At the night of the jinns, Muhammad got pounded by Satan as he was reciting the Quran. Yes, he was. Search it up.
Do you have any proof of that?
Yeah, the night of the jinns. My phone's dead. You can look it up. It's a hadith.
Why is your phone dead? Your phone shouldn't ever be dead. You should have a battery pack on your phone.
I really should.
Are you cold, bro?
Huh? I'm fine. So you've asked an inflammatory question. I've been able to
I
answer
ain't
it.
asked you a question. I asked you if that's true and you said
Yeah,
yes.
that's true.
So it wasn't a question.
So why does Allah limit himself? So in hadith number 179 of Sahih Muslim, Allah limits himself. Can anyone answer my question?
So God being breastfed wasn't limiting himself.
Well, yeah, in respect.
Which breast
In
was- I wanna know
respect.
which breast.
And I want
Where
to
is
know.
God?
I want to know what
breastfed
hole
by Mary.
Muhammad got pounded
I know
by.
which breast it was.
I want to know. I want to know what hole Muhammad got pounded by at the night of the jinns. So at the night of the jinns, Muhammad got raped. Muhammad got raped by Satan.
don't know.
So I'm simply asking what hole it was. He's asking what breast. I'm asking what hole.
We don't know.
I think that's a pretty fair question.
Very vulgar Christians are. No respect.
They're very. When you ask an inflammatory question, I will ask a factually true statement. Now I want to go again around. I've got to go in like half an hour. Okay. Actually, do you want to go around one more time? Okay.
When Muslims ask about Jesus, how can God be born, nurse from his mother, feel pain, and die, they are actually mixing up the two natures of Jesus, his divine nature and his human nature. As Christians, we do not feel threatened by such questions. Rather, the real issue lies in the flawed thinking of Muslims themselves. They fail to distinguish between Jesus' human nature, which could be born, eat, and die, and his divine nature, which remains eternal as the Word of God. They do not understand the concept of the Incarnation, in which the Word entered the world, took on human flesh, without losing his divinity. Ironically, Muslims have a similar concept in Islam but fail to recognize it. For example, in Islam, the Quran is considered the eternal word of Allah, yet the physical mushaf, the book itself, is a created object. Islamic scholars themselves admit that the paper and ink used in the mushaf are created. They can be torn, burned, or stepped on, but its content is still regarded as sacred and eternal. So, if Muslims have no difficulty understanding the difference between the eternal word of Allah and the physical Quran, which is finite, why do they struggle to comprehend that Jesus, as the eternal word of God, could take on a human body without losing his divine nature? When Muslims ask, how can God be born, nurse from his mother, and die, they are not actually challenging Christian faith. Instead, they are exposing their own inability to grasp the concept of divine revelation and the Incarnation. In Islam, Muhammad is considered the final prophet and the perfect moral example. However, when we examine Islamic sources, several incidents raise serious questions about this claim. One of them is the event known as the Night of the Jinn, where Muhammad was attacked by Satan while reciting the Quran. Sahih Muslim 2814a records that Muhammad himself admitted to being accompanied by a jinn and that he needed Allah's help to avoid being influenced by it. This raises the question, how can a prophet who is claimed to be a mercy to all creation be susceptible to interference from spiritual beings known to be deceptive? Another incident that further complicates Muhammad's role as a prophet is the satanic verses. Islamic history recounts an event in which Muhammad recited verses that were later revealed to be from Satan rather than Allah. According to Sirat Rasul Allah by Ibn Ishaq, Muhammad initially believed that these words were divine revelation, only to later realize that he had been deceived. If a prophet can be misled by Satan to the point of delivering false revelation, how can Muslims be certain that the entire Quran is free from the same influence? Could there be other portions of the Quran that also do not originate from Allah but from a deceptive source? Furthermore, there is the fact that Muhammad himself was afflicted by magic, to the point that he could not distinguish reality from illusion. Sahih al-Bukhari 5765 states that Muhammad experienced a condition where he thought he had done things he had not actually done. This is a classic sign of someone under the influence of magic or mental manipulation. If a prophet, who is claimed to be the best of humanity, can be affected by sorcery, how can his revelations be considered pure and uncontaminated? In contrast, Jesus Christ, both in the Bible and even in Islam, is recognized as a sinless and pure figure. Surah Maryam 19:19. When Jesus encountered Satan, he was never deceived. Instead, during his temptation in the wilderness, Matthew 4:1-11, Jesus demonstrated his authority by directly rejecting Satan's temptations. Moreover, Jesus had the power to cast out demons effortlessly. This is evident in multiple gospel accounts, such as when Jesus drove out a legion of demons from a possessed man in the region of Gerasa, Mark 5:1-20. Here we see a stark contrast. Muhammad was not only deceived by Satan, but also lost control of his own mind due to sorcery. On the other hand, Jesus had absolute authority over Satan and was never once under the influence of evil spirits. If someone is searching for a true model of morality and spiritual power, the choice is clear. Will they follow Muhammad, who spoke words from Satan and was affected by sorcery, or Jesus, who commanded demons with divine authority?